Hello and welcome to the Big League Boxing Now Routine YouTuber special, because this is the second one we've done now. First one obviously being Logan Paul and Money Mayweather. We won't get into how my prediction went for that. But before we get into any of the past stuff, introduce our guests. We have a recurring one from last time, Skylar. You know all YouTube stuff. And we've brought on this week, because Dana is unavailable. He actually is busy, unlike myself. Rain Hernandez, who is also busy but made the time. How are you two gentlemen doing? Aiden, how are you doing? We're less than 2 weeks from starting classes again.
Yeah.
How are you boys holding up?
Doing pretty good. It was Stefano actually that we had on last time.
Stefano,
He's not.
right.
He's the one that's too busy right now. But Dana would have been a good guest too. But no, we got Rain and Skylar, so he can't do much better than that.
Didn't we tell Dana we were supposed to bring him on?
I think we told a lot of people.
Better luck next year, guys. Better luck.
Hey,
next fight.
we'll do it for the next Jake Paul fight.
There you go.
After this one, there you go. No, I'm doing well. Yeah, back to school pretty soon, so just trying to enjoy the last bit of summer. But Skylar, Rain, welcome. How are you guys doing today?
Good, man. Thank you for having us. It's awesome. Love being here. So
Thanks for having me, guys. It's always a pleasure. It's been good, man. It's been pretty good summer. Just been grinding as usual. Can't wait to get back, and we got one more last dance for all of us. So it's gonna be a good year. It's gonna be. I
was thinking like this is our last summer until real life, like
exactly,
real world.
right?
Hey, you could do 5 years.
We're not getting summers
You got the
anymore.
big years
do
where we got
5
the grad
years.
school, but like technically, like this is the one, man. This is the one.
Holy.
Yeah, this is our last summer vacation. We're not gonna have summers off anymore if we're working.
Hey, if you're working hockey, maybe.
Damn, that's
You never know.
wow. That just hit me. That's crazy. Crazy to think about.
Life, man.
Well, as we all have existential crises, Skylar's on a high today from the whole Ronaldo news, but we won't get into that because we could talk about Cristiano Ronaldo and all that fun stuff for hours. What we will dive into is the fight, because that's the main topic of this podcast. Specifically, it's Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. What were you guys' first thoughts when you heard this was going to happen? Did you think this was going to be sort of a joke like the Ben Askren fight, or do you think there's a bit more of a competition between Woodley and Paul?
I think
I can start it off if that's okay. I mean, personally for me, like I've been watching combat sports for a while now, and Tyron Woodley is actually one of the first fighters that that got me into the sport. So the way his UFC career ended was a little sad, and sort of how he went out. But to see this fight scheduled, it was a pretty cool opportunity for him. Him and Dana White didn't really mesh well when he was there. So for him to be able to get a payday like this is awesome for him and awesome, for his career. But it's also a great thing for his legacy as well. I think the coolest thing about this thing is, if he's able to win and starch Jake Paul, all those losses that he just had over the past 2 years completely erased, and that'll be his new legacy, and that's what I hope for. And I'm very excited for Sunday night. It's gonna be sweet.
Yeah, I think when I first heard about it, it's kind of like I feel like it's just one of Jake Paul's, I guess, is newer step now on the ladder to kind of build up to actually fight maybe a real boxer eventually. Maybe, you know what I mean? This is like his fifth fight in general, fourth or fifth.
Fourth professional fight he's fought, if you want to include Deji.
Yeah. His first fight was the undercard for KSI Logan Paul, where he fought Deji, like KSI's brother. Obviously, he won that, but back then it wasn't really about boxing. It was more just raw talent, which Jake has. Obviously, 6'1". He's built. He's a good boxer at this point, but he's yet to kind of fight anyone that's really a boxer. It kind of built up where he fought Annie Song-Gib after that, who I'd say is a step up from Deji. And then, he jumped to an athlete like Nate Robinson, but there's no boxing experience. And he's like, what, 5? How tall is Nate Robinson? 5'7"? 5'7", something like that? 5'9"?
Around there.
Yeah.
And then Ben Askren, now we're kind of getting into the fighting realm, but I mean, dude was not in shape at all. And again, he was a wrestler. And now
just a hip replacement too.
Yeah, like 2 weeks before the fight or whatever. And then, now Tyron Woodley, who is definitely more in shape, but I think he might have the same problems in terms of he's a wrestler with striking power. Yeah. But, predominantly a wrestler in the UFC. And obviously this is boxing where you can't take people to the ground, anything like that's just punching. So we'll see how it goes. It'll definitely be Jake's biggest challenge thus far, but I think it'll be a really good fight, just how both guys match up and they're fighting, or how you would think Tyron Woodley would approach this fight. Obviously, it got a little interesting at the weigh-in the other day, so I feel like that just added fuel to the fire. But yeah, it should be a good fight.
Yeah, no, I think like when I first heard it get announced, like there was a ton of rumors like leading up to the announcement as well. Like, who's he gonna fight next, and is he actually gonna fight a real boxer, or is he gonna fight a celebrity or another UFC guy? And once I heard it was Woodley, I think it was like, okay, it's not a boxer. It's an ex-UFC guy. It's kind of a bit of a cheat code because he is mostly known for his UFC. He's a good striker, but he hasn't boxed before. So Jake's just trying to find those loopholes, trying to pick a guy that will be a money fight, but he knows that he can beat. Which I think he thinks he can beat Woodley, but I think other way around for this one, like Skylar said, like this is his toughest challenge yet. Woodley knows that he can beat Jake as well if he takes it seriously and if he lands a strong right, like we've seen in the past. Like Woodley has that knockout one punch power, so he's thinking that he can do the same thing against Jake, and he definitely can. It's going to be a really close fight. Like it's about the experience that Jake has, like the past 4 or 5 years being a boxer compared to like 5 months of training for Woodley. But he also has that entire UFC career. So it's going to be cool to see how it works out. It's going to be a really interesting fight.
Do you think this will be as quick a fight as the past 3 ending in the first round, or do you see Woodley going longer? Do you think his experience stand-up, he's got 7 knockouts in his career. Do you think that experience will help him out in this fight? And how much, we'll dive into why he's angry, but how much do you think how angry Woodley is right now is going to play into the fight on Sunday night?
Yeah, I think it'll play like a pretty big role. His last recent fight actually, it was sort of like him falling on the sword type deal. The past, or I guess the 3 fights beforehand, he fought Kamaru Usman, who's the champion now, Kobe Covington, who's fighting for the belt and was a previous champion, and then Gilbert Burns, who was a title contender. And in all 3 of those fights, Tyron didn't look the same as he did in his prime. He was fighting off his back foot. He looked super tentative. He didn't want to throw anything. And for 15 rounds straight against all 3 of those guys, he got ragdolled and he got bullied. And then when that last fight came against Vicente Luque, it was in March, he said, you know what, screw this. Like, I'm going to go out my sword and I'm going to go bull rush him. And he ended up bull rushing him, and it worked for a bit. He had him stunned, but then right after, he got caught right away and then got submitted, and that was the end of his MMA career. So, obviously, everything went in with his weigh-in, and how angry he is, and so much pressure for him leading up to this fight. I think Tyron's gonna. I think he's showing that he wants to knock him out in the first round, but honestly, I think this might go a little bit longer, just because we've never seen Jake, outside of the first round in his professional career. I guess he did with Gibb, but we haven't seen Jake in those waters before. We haven't seen how his cardio holds up after 5-6 rounds. And the same with Woodley. Woodley's cardio in the UFC wasn't very good either. So obviously both of them are going to want to, knock each other out really early. But I think it's going to go on a little bit longer, and we're sort of going to see, whose cardio is better at the end of the fight. And I think that'll determine who's going to be our winner.
Yeah, I hope it goes longer than the first round, than like all the other fights. The thing with Jake that I'm starting to realize now, and we'll see how he fights in this upcoming fight, but he's very good, obviously, at winding people up. He gets in their heads and gets them angry, which for Nate Robinson, for example, that's how he went out. So because he tried to bull rush him, like Rain said, and it was just one punch to the jaw and you're done. Tyron Woodley has a little bit of a temper that way, so hopefully he doesn't just go into this fight headhunting, because then that's just going to get dangerous, because Jake Paul is going to slack off and then just clock you when you're open. Hopefully it's more composed and, you know, he tries to get inside. I would say go for the body more because he's 5'9" instead of punching upwards to 6'1". You know what I mean? It's a lot easier to try to get inside if you can. But I don't know. I hope it goes longer than 1 round. It should, based on everything we've seen or projecting to be seeing with Tyron Woodley boxing and everything like that. If it does go 1 round and Jake actually knocks him out, I feel like at that point we're gonna have to be like, okay, Jake Paul's really like that, because you know what I mean. One time against a former basketball player, I could see it. 2 times against, you know, a former UFC guy, but 3 times, even if it is another UFC guy, you have a lot of talent to do that, to be able to get someone out in the first round consistently like that. And if that's his game, it's very hard, obviously, implementing stuff inside the ring, where, you know, it's easy to play mind games outside when you know you're not going to get clocked right away. It might be kind of harder to play off that and, you know, kind of cash out on that real estate you have in his head once you get in the ring. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, based off of like projections, what Skylar was kind of talking about, like in this first fight against Gibb, first round, ends in the first round. Second fight against Nate Robinson should have ended in the first round, but goes to round 2. Then the third fight against Ben, first round. Tyron Woodley should be a much better fighter than all 3 of those guys. So it's probably going to go longer than 1 round. I could see it maybe ending mid-rounds, but we'll talk about predictions later. But maybe Woodley's strategy would be to try and tire out Jake, because like you guys were saying, like he hasn't fought deep in fights ever in his career. So maybe that's Woodley's strategy going in. Like Skylar said, the height, like don't try and aim for the head, go for the body shots, try and tire out Jake. I think that might be Woodley's game plan if he doesn't come out angry. I think that would be a horrible decision if Woodley is coming out angry, going for the knockout, because it's just going to end like the way that the Nate Robinson fight ended. He's just going to come in and he's going to get caught with the right. But then again, on the other side, like, we should talk about Jake more. I think like he could do it. He could end it early if he wanted to, because he has been training for a lot longer. He's the more polished boxer. We don't really know what to expect from Tyron Woodley. Like, how is he going to be looking as just a boxer? He can't rely on anything else but his hands in this fight. So he's not going to be trying to set up a takedown, anything like that. Jake has to just worry about his right hand, really. Like, does he even have a jab, Tyron Woodley? Right? Can he defend himself? Does he have head movement? Does he have the footwork to do it? If he doesn't, there's a chance it ends in round 1, and Jake does it again, just like he did with Ben, just like he did with Nate. So I don't know. It's going to depend on Woodley a lot more to decide if this fight lasts or ends in the first round, because Jake can do it. Jake can win anytime throughout the fight. Really, he can win in the first round or the 8th round.
You both, Skylar, Rain, and all of you actually brought up Jake's ability to get into other people's heads. And obviously yesterday was the press conference where there was the whole scuffle. We'll dive into that in a second. But Jake made some pretty bold claims during the press conference, specifically related to his boxing style. He claims he can go southpaw too. Do you think this is Jake telling the truth, or do you think he's trying to sort of boost himself up a bit to try to get into Woodley's head even more and make him question the game plan and the information that he has on Jake?
Oh, for sure. I think any boxer, and especially anyone that trains as much as Jake, focuses on both stances, whether it's orthodox or southpaw. And I think, you know, Jake does want to put that in there. And I think a lot of game plans, whether it's MMA or boxing, is to switch stances and sort of give yourself a different look. And I think Jake will try to do that, because I think all in all, at the end of the day, he does want to win this fight, but he also still wants to prove to people that he's a legit boxer. And I think if he shows, you know, that element of his game where, you know, he's pretty versatile and he has a lot of, you know, tools in his toolbox, I think that would be great for him. And I think if he does end up showing that, I think he will gain a lot of respect from a lot of the boxing heads. And I think, you know, hopefully I think we do see it, because honestly, if we can see some improvement from Jake and sort of, I guess, to sort of clarify that he's not just this YouTuber boxer, that he's actually, you know, a professional boxer and he wants to get in there, I think he does have to show that a little bit. And I think he will. That'd be pretty sweet, eh? If we saw Jake switch it up a little bit and give Tyron a different look. And Tyron's also, outside of the lack of boxing experience, he does have really good fighter IQ. We saw that in his championship fights. He fought Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in 2 fights, and both fights were very, very technical and very, very, I guess, complex in terms of dealing with a different striker. And the guy who fought Wonderboy Thompson, he's one of the best strikers ever. And for Tyron to solve that puzzle and to sort of use his fight IQ to the best of his ability, I think we'll be able to see that on Sunday as well with Jake. So it'll be interesting. I think if Jake does end up switching to southpaw, I think Tyron will be able to adjust, no problem. He's fought different fighters like that before. Obviously, it's a different sport, but I think that will be an interesting thing if we see that on Sunday night for sure.
Yeah, whenever someone like so if he actually can go southpaw, that'd be very impressive. But at the same time, I feel like Jake Paul is one of those kind of guys where he'll say he can do it and like he'll try it anyways, not knowing if he fully can. You know what I mean? And it might work in a fight like this where it's going up against someone like Tyron Woodley, who's already unfamiliar with boxing. Well, unfamiliar with boxing. Obviously, he's still a fighter. He still knows the basics of fighting, footwork, everything like that. But it could throw him off a lot seeing someone switch up their stance in mid-fight, because southpaw is very awkward, especially when you're orthodox, when you guys are you're fighting for foot placement at the same time. Your front foots are kind of clashing all the time. You're stepping over each other. It's a little bit weird. We kind of saw that in forgot who he was fighting, but Ryan Garcia was fighting some guy before, and they were both, or I think he was southpaw, and it's very awkward footing. It kind of changed the flow of the fight, everything like that. So if he can do that against Tyron Woodley, it definitely puts a lot more pressure on Woodley to kind of adjust. Like Rain said, he is a smart fighter. So I'd like to think he has, some escape plans, backup plans, everything like that, or people in his corner can kind of coach him through it, between rounds. But yeah, it'll be an interesting thing if he actually does go southpaw. I'd like to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I think like just because he said it, like it doesn't mean that he has to show it. And I think like the only scenario where I see him switching to southpaw would be if he's losing the fight, or if it's just going on a little bit longer than he expected it to go. Like if he doesn't get it done in the first 2 rounds, and Woodley's been landing some punches on him, maybe change things up a bit, go southpaw. Maybe not for like the whole round or anything, but maybe for like half the round, a bit less than that, just to kind of switch it up, or even just for switching up for 1 punch, throwing that like switching hands. So I don't know if we're gonna see it. I don't think there's any pressure on Jake to show it just because he said it. But I do believe that he has a lot left to show us, and I definitely think that he can do it. Like he's been training for so many years now, not so many years, but like 4 years. He's definitely tried it in sparring before, and he should feel comfortable doing it. Like we saw some guys in like YouTube versus TikTok, like they were doing southpaw like easy. I'm sure Jake Paul can do it. So if he does it, it'll be more impressive. He's got a lot left to show us, he says, but I think we're going to see even more than just him going southpaw. We might see more of that conditioning that he was talking about. If it does last longer, I think he'll be able to put up a fight. I think he can take punches like he's been saying. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't think the southpaw thing will be too big of an issue for him to pull off.
Well, let's sort of wrap up the press conference discussion, because I highly doubt anybody watched it. I didn't, at least. I watched some highlights. But the big thing that came out of the press conference was the drama and the scuffle that, I guess scuffle is probably a good word for it, took place sort of after everything had happened. Specifically, Tyron Woodley's mom got into an argument or verbal altercation with somebody on Jake Paul's team. Woodley got very mad and was sort of held back from getting involved, and sort of both camps sort of came together, I guess, in a way. Obviously, as I mentioned, no fighters involved. How much do you think that's going to play into the fight? Woodley has said since that he's very, very mad. I won't read the full quote, but basically he said he doesn't care about the money anymore. He just wants to hurt him. It's sort of this, really what he's saying. if you can look up the quotes, they're very easily to find. But how much do you think that this sort of scuffle is going to play into what happens, A, at the weigh-in, because that hasn't happened yet, and B, at the actual fight? Do you think that we'll see more of these altercations, or do you think this is sort of a one and done before Sunday night, 7 p.m.?
I think it's more so a one and done. I think you know, at the weigh-ins, I think it'll just be, obviously I think there will be a little bit of a scuffle, but I don't think anything is as big as that, because right now both of their focuses right now is the fight. And you know, once you do get in that ring, or once you do get into that octagon, it's sort of like it's business type thing, and you sort of forget all of that, and you sort of just fight in there and see what you do. I think with Tyron, obviously he's really mad right now, and I think once he calms down, he'll be all right. And I think he won't try to fully carry that full on rage in that first round, and I think he will fight smart and technical. I think, you know, he's really good with that, and you know, yeah, I just think in terms of, you know, Jake and Tyron having another little beef, I think maybe they will. But in terms of what usually typically happens in a boxing event, or even, you know, an MMA event, it's this time or I guess at this point their main focus is, you know, just getting into the fight, and obviously cutting the weight, because another thing that I guess we haven't brought up is I guess the size advantage between Jake and Tyron. Jake's actually a much bigger guy than Tyron. Tyron fought at 170 his entire career, and you know, Jake's like, I think 200, 205. That's the way he walks around. So there is a big size difference between the two, and I guess we will see that a little bit at the weigh-ins, even though we saw a little bit. But yeah, I think those will be some of the things that will play into Sunday night, and I think we'll have a pretty good fight. I'm excited. It's gonna be sweet.
We'll dive into the whole size things, dive into each fighter in a second. But Scott, what are your sort of thoughts on how much the scuffle is going to play into the fight and the weigh-in?
Yeah, I think Rain honestly hit it on the nail. He said it pretty much perfectly. I'd like to hope it doesn't. Like, as we were saying before, it's not good if Tyron Woodley kind of comes in with a hot head, because it's just gonna, like, in any sport in general, if you come into a game or whatever hot, like mad, it's gonna throw you off it's gonna kind of deter you from your game plan, and you're just kind of only gonna think about yourself, your one thing. And for Tyron Woodley, like you said in that quote, would be to hurt Jake Paul. So he's just gonna, like I said before, like headhunting. This is just not what you should do. Hopefully when they get into the weigh-in, it probably will start off calm. I could very easily in my mind picture Jake Paul saying like 2 words or something like that, and it's just gonna be like dropping a match in gas before it all goes up in flames. But it'll be really interesting. Like, if something like that were to happen, obviously it'd be what the cameras want. It caused for more people to pay that extremely high price for pay-per-view if that's what they're going to do. But it's definitely going to bring in more viewers in general to the event, which I'm sure both guys like, especially someone like Jake Paul, where let's not forget his main thing that he kind of grew up with is an entertainer. And I mean, Disney Channel kid, you know, popular YouTube star, everything like that. So kind of anything to get the eyes on him. And I'm sure it's the exact same thing with his brother, Logan Paul. That's why Floyd Mayweather was so down to do it, because Logan Paul attracts everything. You know what I mean? Attracts all types of viewers to fights, everything like that. And it's the same with Jake Paul now. So it'll be interesting to see how the weigh-in goes. And if Tyron Woodley has someone in his corner over his shoulder to kind of tell him, yo, you need to cool off, because this isn't, you know what I mean? If that's what it was. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I don't think it's going to play a big factor into the weigh-in or the fight, honestly. Like, I think, especially on Woodley's end, like, he's a veteran in this sport. I think he knows better than to get riled up over anything like that. And at the same time, like, I don't think Jake's going to say much at the weigh-in to him. I think if you look at their stare down that they just had at the press conference, like, they didn't do much talking. I don't think Woodley said anything to him. Jake might have like muffled a few words, but there wasn't anything intense. Like, I don't think there's going to be a push or anything like that, because I don't think the beef is really between them more so, considering like this altercation was more so Jake Paul's team. It wasn't like one-on-one, like literally them one-on-one. So maybe that, you know, helps it out a little bit. But yeah, I don't think Woodley's going to come into this fight with anger. He's going to have a game plan, and he knows, like, his nickname is the Chosen One. He only gets one shot at this. He's not going to put his emotions in front of his strategy for this fight. And at the same time, I think Jake is also really focused on the fight. I don't think anything's going to happen at the weigh-in. You know, the last thing you'd want is for one of them to get injured if a fight goes down or someone gets pushed. So I think Jake was talking about on Logan's podcast yesterday. He needs Logan to step into the weigh-in or something and steal one of Woodley's hats or something, or do something to Woodley. So if anything's going to happen, it's going to be Logan Paul coming in and messing up. But I don't see Jake or Tyron doing anything.
What do you guys see happening at the weigh-in? Obviously, you don't think much will happen, but do you think Logan will get involved in something, or do you think that the two camps will go at it again? Do you think there'll be any drama at all, or do you think it's going to go over pretty smoothly?
Well, I'll back up what I said about Logan. I think Logan's just too nice of a guy. Like, he didn't want that gotcha hat thing to happen in the first place with Jake, so I don't think he's going to step in and do anything. I don't even know if I guess he'll be there, but he'll just be like back. I don't even know if he'll be there, actually. I'm not sure.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think anything. I hopefully it goes smoothly. I think, like I mentioned previously, I think at this point in the fight, or I guess at this point in the timeline of when they got to fight, I think right now it's just business, and I think they're just gonna do the weigh-ins, stare at each other, and then I think that'll be that, because I think all that press conference drama, I think will just be put. They'll save it for Sunday night.
Yeah, I think the only way you'll see something from Logan Paul is if Jake says something and somehow it gets a reaction out of Tyron Woodley. I feel like then he might jump in, not necessarily to kind of heighten the situation, but try and de-escalate it. I feel like that's all you're really going to see from him. Like Aiden was saying before, I'd say he's nicer than Jake Paul. You know what I mean? Obviously, we saw how Logan acts, going into fights, but that's kind of like regular. You know what I mean? It's regular to chat your shit a little bit, everything like that. But at the weigh-in, I'd expect him to be a little bit more reserved and kind of just there as a support beam for Jake Paul if anything does go left, but hopefully not.
Speaking of reserved, Tyron Woodley was very, very calm in the press conference. Do you think that'll play into him being successful on Sunday night, or do you think that might hurt him in that he's too passive come fight time?
It depends which Tyron Woodley shows up. If we get a really technical Tyron Woodley where, he's pushing the pace, I think we'll have a really good shot to see, him getting the win or a really good knockout. But, I guess I touched on with his previous performances, when he was too passive, it was tough, but it was also against the best of the best world-class fighters. Like, we saw what Kamaru Usman can do. We see what Kobe Covington can do to opponents, even Gilbert Burns. Those guys are just the best of the best. And I think when Jake Paul's right in front of him, I don't think Tyron's going to have that same fear of someone, because, the takedown isn't there. And, it's Jake Paul, right? Like, I know Tyron's not afraid of that guy at all. He's fought some way scarier people. So honestly, I think he'll be okay if he can just put Jake on his back foot with his pressure and, not be passive like he was against those fighters in like the past 2 years. I think Tyron will be fine. I think because there's just so much on the line for him. Like, if he's able to win this fight, like, everyone will forget about, how the UFC ended with him and, how his MMA career ended. Everyone will just remember him as the UFC champion who knocked out Jake Paul. And I think he knows that, and I think his team knows that. And if he's able to come out on top, I think he will be in a great spot. So hopefully you don't see the same Tyron from the end of his UFC career, and I guess his prime for one more time on Sunday night. And let's hope he wins, man, because Jake Paul needs to be humbled. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think I agree with Rain. Like, Tyron Woodley's career, he's fought a lot of dudes that would merit you being scared of. Jake Paul doesn't seem like one of them to me. I don't think he'll be rattled by that. I think the one problem he could have, and you'll see it in any sport, is there's a very fine line between how relaxed or reserved, composed you can be with someone. Obviously, I mean, for combat sports like this, Would I be a little bit intimidated if my opponent was calm and I'm hyped to fight him? Yeah, a little bit. We've all seen that video of Mike Tyson before he's about to forgot the guy's name, before he's about to fight someone. He's just eyeing him down in the ring, just calm, composed. That's walking the line there where I'm composed enough to know I will knock you out because I have that much talent, whatever. But if you go a little bit too far, it goes to the point where you're overlooking your opponent, and that's just any sport. That's a no-go. That's always very bad. If you go into the fight acting like Jake Paul is some kid, then shit, you're going to get knocked out by a kid. You know what I mean? You got to still respect your opponent at all times. But the reserve thing, I'd like to think because he's a veteran of combat sports in general, in UFC now and boxing, or not really a boxing veteran, but, veteran that is boxing. I think he has those kind of mind games on lock now, and knows how to show himself in the public and everything like that to not sort of give anything away to Jake Paul. But yeah, hopefully if it is the right type of reserved, it should be looking good for Tyron Woodley. But like I said, there's a very fine line. So if he's going over that, then it could get kind of dangerous if he's overlooking Jake Paul. But I'd like to think not. He should know by now to respect all of his opponents. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that last point that Skylar made. Like, he has to, even though he thinks, like, he could be underestimating Jake, but he still has to have some level of respect for him and that knockout power. And I do think he will. He can't look past him. On the other hand, I think Jake is looking past Woodley. He's super confident that he can get the win. And I think he even mentioned, like, he might fight Tommy Fury after, who happens to be on the same card. Yeah, no, I think it's just Woodley's personality, like Skylar was saying. Like, he's mature enough to know better, and he's got the sunglasses on, the shades during the press conference, doesn't want to show any emotion. But who knows what's going on underneath those glasses? Maybe he's teary-eyed, maybe he is offended by some of the things that Jake's saying. No, I wanted to say, like, I think Woodley in the press conference was giving me some Ben Askren vibes, though. Like, just saying, I'm not about the talk, guys. I just want to fight. That makes me think that maybe he's just doing it for the money. He just wants to get out of there, get the fight, and get the money and dip and retire. Similar to what Ben was saying, he wasn't doing much talk during the press conferences, at least. And you know what? We know what happened then. So I don't know. But at the same time, Jake's just, a big trash talker when it comes to that stuff. So he's just a lot better at it. He's used to it. He's good at entertaining. But I don't know. I don't want to read too much into what Woodley was saying or what he didn't say, I guess.
Well, you sort of hinted at what you think the disadvantages for one person will be. So I'm curious to get your thoughts in. What are the disadvantages? The biggest disadvantage, I'll go to each one of you. Rain, you're going last because you know fighting the best. But what do you see as being the biggest disadvantage for Tyron Woodley and for Jake Paul going into this fight?
Well, for Woodley, it's the biggest disadvantage will probably just be, well, honestly, there's a few of them, but I guess just on paper, the height, first of all, just looking at them straight up one-on-one against each other, like Woodley's 5'9", right? And Jake's 6'1", so that's huge. And also Jake's got the longer reach, but then also experience. You got to look at experience. Like, you can look at Woodley's career, like, he's been fighting a lot longer than Jake, but he doesn't have the same boxing level experience. And he's also Jake's more active than Woodley too, like Rain was saying. His last fight was a couple of years ago now. So, or is it more than that?
His last win was a couple of years ago.
His last win was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
So experience, and yeah, just being active. So there's a few of them, and just being in his first professional boxing fight, I think that's a disadvantage. He's not sure how it's going to feel. And I think also one of the one factors is that this fight's in Cleveland, Ohio. So Jake's going to have, his family, friends in attendance. You'd probably think that most of the people there will be cheering for Jake, and Tyron's got like everyone against him. So that's another big factor we got to consider.
Well, now that you've taken all of the disadvantages.
Yeah, I take all of them. Sorry.
What do you see as being the biggest disadvantage for Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley going into this fight?
I don't know. I think I guess I'll piggyback with Tyron Woodley first, and then I'll move on to Jake. But for Tyron Woodley, like Aiden said, he's smaller in every sense of the way. 5'9" to 6'1", probably weighs a good at least 10, 15 pounds less than Jake. And it's to the point where it's the same thing with Ben Askren that we were talking about like a little bit before we started recording. When you take a UFC guy who, when you're in the UFC, your MMA, you kind of become a jack of all trades. You can use your hands, your legs, you can take him to the ground, whatever. When you take a UFC guy that's been doing that his whole fighting career and you go, boom, okay, we're going to go boxing. Now you instantly just took away like 50%, if not more, of their repertoire. Now you can't kick them anymore. You can't take them to the ground. You can't throw no more elbows. It's just your fists. It's just your hands. So it kind of limits you in terms of what you can and can't do. And we kind of even saw it, if you guys remember, when Floyd Mayweather was fighting Conor McGregor for the first time. You kind of saw Conor McGregor go into these tendencies of doing like these overhand punches, stuff that you would see in the UFC, because that's obviously like that's his natural thing. That's what he's used to doing. And all of a sudden you kind of tell him, yo, you can't do this no more, even though how effective it is, you can't do it anymore in boxing. So that's one of the things he's going to run into. And then also, yeah, like Aiden was saying, the fight being in Cleveland, as much as people probably would be cheering for Jake, I'd assume in Cleveland, Ohio, all the eyes are still going to be on Tyron Woodley, because like we were saying before, maybe outside of Cleveland, no one really likes Jake Paul like that. Majority of the people want to see him get knocked out. And so because of that, we're all kind of standing there, mouth open at Tyron Woodley, looking at him like he's the second coming of, you know what I mean? Like, whatever, like, just please do something. Please knock him out. Please shut up. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. We're all eyes are going to be on him from that reason. So it kind of ups the expectations for him. And, we'll see how he fares with that. Obviously, like we've been saying, he's a veteran, so you should be able to deal with expectations, high expectations, everything like that. But stuff like this, where it is a little bit of a different scenery, it's boxing, and, you're a few years removed, like Rain was saying, from your last win. So we'll see how that goes. As far as it goes for Jake, I think his only disadvantage is going to be himself. If he gets too far in his head and too confident, because he seems like a very confident fighter, which, I mean, why wouldn't he be? You know what I mean? He's 4-0 professionally. Like we were saying before, none of his fights have gone past the second round. He has a lot of reasons to be a confident fighter going into this fight. But I think it's the same thing as I was saying with the Tyron Woodley thing. It can't get to his head. If he starts to go in, which I'd assume he is, because he even said it, how he was looking to fight Tyson Fury's brother. Like saying how he's already won this fight and he's already thinking about the next opponent, whatever, that's extremely dangerous. Whether or not Jake Paul is actually thinking that, or if he just said it to get a reaction, is two different things. I think it could be either, right? He seems like he knows enough about what he's doing to get under people's skin. So he could just be lining up a next fight, even though he might not believe that, and he's fully focused on Tyron Woodley. We'll see how that goes. But advantages, it's basically the opposite for Jake Paul. He's bigger. So one of the things, because I was watching Israel Adesanya has a YouTube channel, so obviously I was looking at his breakdown of the fight. And one of the things he said, which makes a lot of sense, is whenever you get into clinches, lean on him, because he's so much heavier, especially someone trying to hold you up, especially without their legs, just lifting you off with their back. It's 8 3-minute rounds, I think. So it's a reasonably long fight. And you can make it a lot longer if Tyron Woodley's gassed by the 5th round, because he keeps having to hold you up whenever you guys get into a clinch, anything like that. I mean, whether or not Logan Paul intentionally did it to Floyd Mayweather, or if Floyd actually knocked him out there and he was actually holding him up, like if you remember that, stuff like that would go greatly for his advantages. I mean, even though he is a lot taller, it's only like a 2-inch, I think, reach like advantage from like 76 to 74. So we'll see how, obviously you can still jab. Jabbing is always good, just to keep your guy at bay. But I think you can't expect just to jab and not get a jab right back in his face, because Tyron Woodley does have that range. But yeah, it'll be a really good fight. I think both of them match up very well, measurements wise, and statistically, everything like that, projections and stuff. So yeah.
Rain, what do you see as being Tyron Woodley and Jake Paul's biggest disadvantages going into this fight? And I guess more so based on fighting quality for you, because you're more familiar with the fighting, whereas these guys are more raw stats sort of familiar with this fight.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing for Tyron is I guess I mentioned in a previous answer with there's so much on the line for him, and I think dating back to when he was the UFC champion, he he dealt with a lot of hate and a lot of backlash from either if it was the fans or if it was Dana White, and it was like, oh, you're a boring fighter, or oh, your fights are terrible, and oh, you're an overrated champion, stuff like that. And Tyron listened to all that, that outside stuff, and it sort of got into his head a little bit, especially towards the end of his career too. And I think he obviously, him and Ben Askren are training partners, and Tyron was in his corner for that fight, so he saw firsthand what happens if you lose. The embarrassment on Twitter, Ben all over social media, just him getting knocked out by a YouTuber, him sort of pretty much losing his legacy, where everyone knows him as this Khabib type wrestler who would just rag and doll everyone he fought, and now he's known as the guy that got knocked out by Jake Paul. So I think Tyron will have that in his back of his mind, and I think if he can just sort of deal with it and sort of fight through that pressure, I think he'll be okay. I think that's one disadvantage, and also for Tyron, it's the size. I think the weight difference, and also the size difference with Jake, and also just with I guess the reach advantage as well. Tyron will have sort of a tough time getting inside just because of that reach advantage. But also for Jake, I think a disadvantage for him is, whether or not Tyron, brings new elements into that fight. I think if he makes him fight on his back foot, I think that'll be the big key. If Tyron can put Jake in uncomfortable situations, whether it's through the clinch, hugging on him, even though he's the undersized guy, or just pressuring him and picking up the pace, I think those are two things that he can do that will help him be successful. But also a disadvantage for both of them is the cardio. Like we said, Tyron's a very buff guy, and throughout his MMA career, he wasn't known as a guy that could pick up the pace for 5 rounds. We would see it in rounds 3 and 4s and 5s. Whenever he's fighting someone, he would start to wear down a little bit. His power would start to diminish. He wouldn't throw as much stuff. The takedowns weren't as prevalent. Obviously, there's no takedowns here, but he would get tired real quick, and it'll be interesting to see how he uses his energy and how he conserves it, because boxing's a much different giant in terms of keeping your cardio. I think you need a much better cardio to be a boxer than you do have to be an MMA fighter, just because you're on your feet the entire time. You gotta move on your feet. You gotta jab. You gotta use your footwork. It's stuff like that. So I think cardio will be the biggest thing with those two, and we'll see what happens, because like I said, Tyron has so much on the line, and if he loses, it just adds on to, I guess, the L's that he's taken over the past 2 years, and now people will just know him as this washed up fighter that lost all these fights, including getting knocked out or losing to Jake Paul. Whereas if he wins, all that's gone. So I think that's the thing I just keep pushing in. There's just so much on the line for Tyron, and we'll just see how he deals with that pressure. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens.
All right, the best part of the podcast, predictions. Betting odds right now, to inform you, as of recording, we're 1.53 for Paul to win, 2.40 for Woodley to win, and 19.00 for a draw. I don't want predictions for what you think will happen yet. What I want predictions for, in terms of who you're winning, I want predictions for when each of the fighters will win, if they win. So when do you see Tyron Woodley winning what round? When do you see Jake Paul winning what round? I don't know if any of you have predictions for that prepared, but if anybody wants to go first, feel free.
Okay, I can go. So I'll go with Jake first, because I think I have a better idea. Woodley is tough to judge, I think, but the Jake one, like, based off of the past, it's easy to look at that and say, hey, it's going to be a first round, second round kind of thing. And I am sort of leaning towards another early round knockout. I don't want to see it. I want to see if Jake actually has some conditioning, and I want to see Woodley last and make it a fight. But I'm willing to bet that in the 4 or 5 months that Willie's been training, he just hasn't gotten to that same level as a boxer than that Jake has. So I'm going to say round 2 KO Jake. Round 2 KO Jake. For Woodley, on the other hand, it's a bit tougher, but I think it could also be somewhere in like the early to mid rounds knockout. I don't know if it's gonna last the full fight. I don't see Woodley like winning on the scorecards just because I think Jake will be dominating most of the fight. But I the slim chance I could see Woodley like catching Jake in like the third round knockout for Woodley, I'd say. But yeah.
I think just based off what we were talking about in terms of their fighting style and mentally what could be going on with both of them, I'd say I'll start with Tyron Woodley. Let's say he does go in with a bit of a hot head, not necessarily headhunting, but just pushing the pace, being more aggressive, trying to put Jake Paul on the back foot. If he does that correctly and he's not wild with his punches and he actually seems controlled, I could maybe see him knocking Jake out earlier on. If there is a knockout going to happen, you could knock him out earlier on. For the sake, I'd say that one of the first 2 rounds, for the sake of this, I'll say the second round, mid-second round. Just because we haven't really seen someone push the pace with Jake Paul yet. Nate Robinson sort of did it, but not a fighter really. You know what I mean? And he was just kind of being aggressive. If Tyron Woodley can push the pace as a fighter and kind of know how to put Jake in weird positions, I could see that happening. But you flip it with Jake Paul. If he's composed how we would like to think he is, the more polished fighter, being work like training for boxing for the past 4 years, whatever we were saying before. He could be one of those guys that if he's smart and watches old time Woodley stuff and he picks up on what Rain said about how he's never been a big cardio guy, you kind of just ride that wave, just moving around, ride the wave until he gets tired, 3rd, 4th round. And then, it's an easy target now. So I'll say, maybe a Jake Paul knockout in the 3rd. I'll say 4th round. Jake Paul knockout in 4th round.
Here's what I'm saying for the sake of the show and, to get the numbers as much as high up as possible. I'm predicting a double knockout. Round 8, overhand right. Tyron knocks Jake right to the ground. But as he drills that overhand right, Jake gets him with a nice left hand uppercut. Both of them go down. Fight's over. Bang.
Fight's over.
Double knockout. There you go.
There we go.
Like Rocky 1, right? I don't know if you guys watched Rocky 1, but Rocky 1.
Oh, I think I've seen that. I've seen the clip, yeah.
Or was it Rocky 2? It was one of the Rocky. It was one of the Rocky Apollo Creed fights where they both get down, and it's like classic Hollywood. Both of them are trying to get up before 10 goes, and then Rocky just gets up in time. Spoiler alert! No offense, guys. Sorry, but yeah,
if you haven't seen it by then, you're not gonna see it.
Yeah, exactly. For the sake of this episode, I'm predicting a double knockout, and I'm gonna put like $5 on it, just like a draw.
I thought my prediction was going to be out there.
But think of sorry, before you go to your prediction, Connor, how cool would that be if they get a double knockout and the fight was sick for 8 rounds? And since it was a draw, they have a rematch. Boom. There you go. That's billions right there. I'm a promoter. I'm the next Dana White.
Here, I'll say something. I could maybe hop on that prediction, but not in the 8th round. I'll go round 1.
Okay, that'd be sweet. Yeah,
round
one, they both double knockout. Fight's over. Everyone's mad that they spent $60 on like a 30-second fight.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the shortest Jake Paul fight ever. Didn't think he could get shorter than that.
Speaking of first rounds, my prediction was going to be this fight doesn't get out of the first round, and one of the two win by knockout in the first round.
I'd be down with that.
Yeah, I could see it. Yeah.
Especially if it's Tyron Woodley knocking out Jake Paul in the first round.
That'd be even better.
Oh my gosh.
That'd be crazy.
Dude would gain like 10 million followers on every single
he doesn't even have Instagram.
I don't think he has it.
Oh, does he not? Oh.
I was looking up his Instagram. I don't think he has it. Unless it's just a weird username.
I think he deactivated it for his phone. I always see him on John Jones's Instagram, just like commenting like inspiring stuff like
Oh.
"Let's go, champ," or "You got this, champ," or "Wow, this video is awesome." Like, you know, Tyron's one of those I guess old Instagram users.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But double knockout, that's my prediction.
All
I
right.
like it.
Now I want to know, what is your actual prediction in terms of, you have $10. You need to put a bet on a fighter to win in a round. What's your prediction? If you don't know what it is yet, I can go first. And I will say, I think we see a first round Jake Paul knockout. I don't think Tyron Woodley is going to be very good. I think he's going to walk into a punch and absolutely lose his chin. I think he's emotional based on the quotes that I've read after the press conference, and I think he will lose his head because I think Jake will say something when he goes into the ring. So I'm going first round knockout, Jake Paul, continuing the trend of first round knockouts after Gibb, after Nate Robinson, and Ben Askren. Although, yeah, Ben Askren was first round.
The Nate one technically didn't go round 1. It was round 2.
Oh, it was round 2?
It should have been called, if not for the ref counting
Probably.
to 10s, like with Mississippi's. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I had to put money on it, I don't want to be this guy, but I would put my money on Jake Paul also. As much as it would kill me, I would put money on Jake Paul. I feel it's a safer bet. But I would say in and around the second or third round, for the sake of this, I'll say the second round. Going off of what I would like to think, because obviously Jake Paul would improve with every fight, as any fighter would. The thing with Woodley is, I agree with Connor in terms of he does seem a little bit emotional based off the quotes. So we'll see how he kind of turns out. He might be kind of jacked up for this fight, adrenaline wise, just ready to get it going, whatever. In which case, like Connor said, I could see him stepping into a punch and lights out for the night. So I'll go Jake Paul in the second round.
I'm gonna go. I gotta rep my boy. Like I actually do have a pretty decent respect for Jake Paul. Just for him to come off his silk sheets and just become a boxer in these past 4 or 5 years is actually pretty impressive. And sort of just to market himself as this guy, it's you got to give credit where credit is due. Obviously, he's a prick at times, or I guess 95% of the time. And 98% of the time. The other 2% I'll give him because he's fighting Dana White for UFC fighter pay, so I'll give him that. Anyways, but honestly, Tyron's my boy. I can't bet against him. I'm gonna go Tyron decision. I think Tyron decision would be cool. I'm gonna contradict myself here. Actually, I lied. Okay, so here's what I think. Here's how I think this fight will play out. Just me dreaming about it. I think Tyron knocks Jake down in the first round, and Jake gets back up. And I think Jake rallies the storm and ends up winning via decision. I think that's how it goes. There we go. Jake Paul decision, not Jake Paul knockout. Jake Paul decision. I do think he shows that he does have some bit of cardio, and I think his cardio might be a little bit better than Tyron's. And then that's how we see the fight. I think it'd be like a slugfest 8-round war. That's my dream. So I think Jake Paul decision. That's my guess.
If not for the double knockdown.
Yeah. If not, yeah. Obviously, double knockout's my real prediction. But since Connor asked,
right. If you bet $10 on the double knockdown, it's a $400 payout.
Yeah, there you go. Really?
So, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'll probably put $5 because no, not even. Probably $2.
$2.
Check $2.
Yeah, it's $80 payout. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Honestly, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna do it.
You have to now.
Oh, 100%.
You put it out there, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'll send you guys a screenshot of my Betway slip, and that there's proof that I did it. So, yeah, I got you guys.
Aiden will put the screenshot.
Yeah, I'll put it on the big league story.
Do it. Yeah.
Just don't put any personal information on the screenshot.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, my actual prediction. Okay, I think Woodley's gonna. If Woodley does win, it'll be early, like I said. I don't think it's gonna happen. I think Jake's just too good. Or too good of a better fighter than Woodley, I'll say. I would like to say round 1, and I could see it ending in round 1. Maybe a knockdown happens by Jake, but I think it ends in round 2. I'd put my money on Jake Paul KO round 2. Yeah.
So
not the most exciting prediction, but I think that's
Okay, I'm gonna
be
change
how it
mine
goes.
just to make it different. I'm gonna say
Sure.
TKO instead. I'm gonna say TKO instead of
Sweet.
Okay.
full knockout.
Nice.
Just full knockout. Yeah.
Well, we're predicting a not very long fight. My final question, because both Rain and Skylar have more important things to do, but do we see a tattoo tomorrow on Sunday night? Yes or no?
Gosh. Well, apparently there's a tattoo artist going to be going to the fight.
According to Paul, yes, he's bringing one. And I guess the other follow-up to that question is said fighter who would be tattooed okay enough to be tattooed? Or are they
in the hospital, Jake just sends the tattoo artist to the hospital while Woodley's
Oh
like in
my
the
gosh.
chair. It's like, you got to get this.
You got it.
I think Tyron knocks out the tattoo artist if he approaches him. I think that's what happens. If he doesn't knock out Jake, he's knocking out the tattoo artist right after.
He's getting one done.
Yeah, he's getting something.
one of them.
Yeah, I could see Woodley getting the tattoo and Jake and him taking a photo afterwards, and like Jake putting it on his Instagram, or and Woodley like reactivating his Instagram and like saying, "Hey, respect to this guy" or something. Yeah.
I don't know. I just wouldn't want to be the tattoo artist just in case. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't. If that ends up happening, Jake Paul wins. Obviously, I'll be a little bit excited as a tattoo artist, but I'd be like, damn, now I gotta go in. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've reached the logical conclusion at the logical end.
Do you think there's going to be a tattoo, Connor?
No, because I think said person will not be in a state where they can accept a tattoo.
Yeah, I think so too.
So, and maybe a couple days later, we'll see.
Yeah.
Right.
But obviously, as I mentioned, Skylar, Rain, they have to take off. They have things to do. So we'll wrap it here. If you want to watch the fight, it starts 7 o'clock Sunday night. That's Eastern. Pay-per-view starts at 8 o'clock. Woodley and Paul are expected to fight around midnight. The pay-per-view is $59.99 American. So you can pay that if you like. Wait for the highlights as they come out on Instagram. We won't mention the other option. We're working in sport media.
Oh gosh, come on, guys! Editing. I gotta edit this
I don't
stuff.
even know what the other option is. I don't even know what the other option is.
I just said or. I didn't say what, but I said
That's
or.
true.
You know? Yeah.
No, you mean attending the fight. Where tickets are reportedly
tickets are on
starting at $10.
sale. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Ah,
So,
there you go.
there you go. But thank you for watching. If you did watch this, hopefully you liked our predictions. We'll see if Rain's very out there prediction comes true. I really, really hope it does, because that would be superb content.
Shoot or shoot.
Rain, shoot, shoot.
Shoot or shoot.
There you go. So if this prediction goes right, Rain, hats off, applause. You will have the best take we've ever had on this.
We'll
podcast.
give you the podcast if you get that right.
I'll take it. Hey, honestly, like if it does end up happening, like we won't be doing podcasts. We'll be in Bali, with our millions, with our millions of dollars, all four of us. Since you guys heard it first, I'll take you guys to Bali with my millions.
That's amazing.
There we go. There we
That's
go.
amazing.
So we're heading to Bali.
Oh boy.
Follow us all on Instagram for the pictures.
Amazing.
Speaking of Instagram, what are all your Instagrams?
Yo, okay, we're gonna test out Aiden's. Who's editing this? Aiden or Connor?
Not
I am
me.
editing.
Okay, boom. We're gonna have Gonzalez like boom, GXNZALES like that,
Sweet.
like that, boom, just like that.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got you.
What about your other
Yeah.
Instagram?
Which one, man? Okay, Aiden, we're making your job hard. Okay,
They're all in the description already, but
all
okay,
of them in the
sure.
description.
On the
Boom.
screen too.
Gonzalez, boom, NST football,
Jeez.
boom. I got next podcast.
All right, I think you gave me enough room there.
There
All
you
right,
go.
sweet.
There you go.
All right,
Nice.
cool. All right, Rain.
Yeah, I'll go. I'll just plug in my new account. Follow me at Arca Sports, RCAH Sports on IG. That's the plug right there. And then also at Bringer of Rain on on Twitter. Just add the E at the end. So
I've been meaning to
follow
say
me
that's
on
an
those there.
amazing name, by the way. Bringer
Thank
of
you.
Rain. That is an
Hey,
amazing name.
Thank Josh Donaldson for that
Yeah,
one.
thank Josh Donaldson.
That
Yeah.
is amazing.
Oh yeah. Throw shout out to I think grade 9 going to grade 10 Rain. I think that's when I changed it. So stood the test of time. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Aiden?
At Aiden Silifant in the description. I'm not gonna make myself do more editing. So
Sorry, man.
no, it's all good. Yeah. And at Unlimited Pod as well on Instagram.
I was about to yell at you. Check out the MLS Multiplex podcast, my written stuff at MLS Multiplex. Check out, obviously, subscribe to this channel. Check me out on Twitter at CWG Somerville. Linked in the description. I won't make Aiden do any more work. Yeah. Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, share it with all your friends. Comment if you've managed to listen this far. I really commend you. And check out all these boys' other stuff because they do great content in all different matter of things. So go check them out. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the fight. Peace.